National circuits are nothing new to the Ford of Ireland Championship runners, as they've just returned from Wales, where they contested 2 rounds of their series at the Pembury circuit. Chris Paul came out of Wales as joint championship leader.
Faster track than Mondello here, very interesting. I came away with a second and a fourth and 2 fastest laps, which left me joint leader. There was instance at the start of the race, and about the 3rd corner in, I spun off to the back of the field, and I had a great race coming through the field to finish 4th. Qualified in pole, I was second. We got away 1 and 2, and it was a very pacey race. Neil drove very well. I'll be honest, it was close, but I was always going to be second.
Yeah, we had a great couple of results in Pembury. We had a first and a second. Last year we won the 1600, so I think that carried on to this year, where I really just liked the track. And yeah, Chris Paul was really our main challenger in Pembury, and I'm joined with him in the championship. So I think Chris will be really my main man this year in the championship, and maybe Philip Coe as well. Myself and Philip were having a great battle for the lead of the race, and he slid wide on one of the corners, and I went for the inside. The door was closed, and unfortunately Philip rolled. I kept going, and the race was declared as Philip winner, and I was second.
A week is a long time in Formula Ford. The cars have been repaired or replaced in Mark O'Connor's case, the psychological wounds licked, and now the Zetec boys are ready to do battle on Mondello's new long circuit.
And a good start there from Coe, but something's happened. He's either missed a gear because he's been swallowed by the grid. And who is it but Chris Paul from the 2nd row up into the lead, followed by Shanahan. And everything else ring. That's Derek M. Daly that's just gone to the grass and nearly caught himself into the kitty litter, as they call it. And Hill there in the background as well. McConville going through, but they're all streaming through. But it's Chris Paul out in the lead after his run at Pembury. And who is it in 2nd place? Yes, still Shanahan from Alan Ring, from George McAlpin, then Kelly, then O'Connor as they stream up the hill towards the new circuit.
So the 2 championship rivals are at it again. Chris Paul, the multiple champion, very, very experienced man in Formula Ford for many years, and Neil Shanahan sliding wide there. The new wonder kid who's come from kart racing is only in his 2nd season of circuit racing and has taken up the Zetec challenge with a vengeance.
And he's gone the long way around, but Chris Paul hasn't given up yet, because he knows that the next one is really tight right-handed. If he can keep that inside line, which he's doing, just gets on the brakes nice and late. Look at Alan Ring in the background and George McAlpin. These two beginning to make inroads. In fact, they should make a lot more inroads in Zetec racing, because the front 2 are falling over each other. But it's still Chris Paul with that manoeuvre down the inside at the double hairpin into the S's, this big long chicane, and then a very long left-hander which brings them back down at the back of the pits complex. And look at George McAlpin taking a bite out of Alan Ring's gearbox, but a spin in the background. That's Kelly and O'Connor. And who else it is? Dag. So Dag in the DHL car, I think he's got going again, but there's 2 losers there. 53, that's Dag. That's Alan Kelly and Mark O'Connor. And believe it or not, safety car out again, but that is a brand new chassis, Alan.
Yes, poor Mark O'Connor in the Swift, the brand new Swift, which he had to replace after a major accident at Pembury. They're round behind the safety car, they must queue up behind that. So it's Chris Paul in 2nd place, Neil Shanahan, the Van Diemen, both of them. Then the first of the My Gals. Those are the French-built chassis. Now the lights are out in the safety car, so we're going to get racing again. It's Alan Ring then in the My Gal in 3rd place, former 1600 champion here at Mondello. And they come streaming through. There's Jeff McConville in another My Gal, number 40, in the distinctive shark-nosed car. They're racing again. They come down towards turn 1, lap 4, and the battle is on.
Yes, and Alan Ring again looking at the inside of Neil Shannon's car. Now here's Chris Paul's chance just to get that little breather. If Ring can hop on the gearbox of Shanahan, Chris Paul may be able just to pull that little distance down. This is an RF96 as opposed to an RF98. 2 years in difference. Then there's Ring in the My Gal. And that red one there, that's Neville Smith, son of Dick Smith, really motoring through there with Richie Rhines on his tail. And then it's McConville bringing up the rear. But again, Chris Paul and Shanahan just beginning to dominate again. But I don't think George McAlpin is going to let Alan Ring away.
So the red car we just see in the background there, that in fact is the Vector car with a colour scheme, with apologies to Ganassi Racing from the kart series in America. So here they come. The first two pulling away a little bit. Neil Shanahan trying to keep the pressure there on his fellow Van Diemen driver, Chris Paul, then 32 leads as they come down into the double hairpins. In second place, Shanahan, then Ring, and then we've got George McAlpine as the rest of the field comes streaming through.
And Henry O'Friel there chasing McConville as they spread out from the lower dip up into this big long chicane. This is a different sort of corner from Mondello Park. The old S's on the first circuit. You can see this a long left-hander as they head towards the back of the paddock. But Shanahan really close now. In fact, he's closer than he's ever been to this left-hander. Remember the old up the hill to the hairpin. Will Chris keep that inside door firmly closed? Shanahan looking at it, just wasn't close enough, but he loses about a half a car length. But Ring again, just not close enough to make any advantage out of that. Form of Zetec Racing, they should be all over each other's gearboxes, looking for a little mistake or a dive like that. In fact, if he was any closer, Shannon probably wouldn't have made that move. He would have gone the quick line, but again, in underneath the brakes, Ring beginning to pull away slightly from McAlpine as they head for the country.
Nice to see Alan Ring back in a competitive car. The Kerry man who puts a lot of mileage into his motor racing even before he starts racing. So he's back with the Mygal, brand new Mygal there, the French-built car, in third place. So 1, 2, 3 all together, and indeed 4. George McAlpine in the other Mygal just shadowing him. These 4 seem to be pulling away slightly, but you can see that Chris Paul is under pressure, locking the front wheel there as he came into braking into this very, very long left-hander now as they go onto the new track.
Yes, and a look at the inside again, Shannon. Remember, we saw him try the outside. He's now trying the inside. Ring again, closing up under braking, but Shannon just gets the power and the grip as they pull out of that now. He's got to have a look down the outside, this late braking, but he's close enough this time to do it. Can he get away with it? Chris leaving the door well and truly open, not really in far enough, but Ring got to get his nose into this thing. But all this time, George McAlpine has come back on the tail of Ring, so now we have a 4-car race on our hand. Shannon again looking at that inside line as they come into this big long chicane. Long left-hander off the power, then back on the power, left hand again, past the stricken cars of Kelly and O'Connor, and they're heading for the back of the pits.
And the playing field, you could say, is more even than usual here, because normally racing drivers practice the circuit blind, and you let these two, and look at this time, he's through this time. A lap later, he does it. He set the move up the previous lap, and now Neil Shanahan goes through to take the lead, throws the tail out, trying to get a little bit of distance now between himself and Chris Paul. A beautiful maneuver, very well executed, so there's our new leader.
And a new third place man, George McAlpine, has got by Alan Ring. We didn't see it, but we think it was at the first hairpin on that lap as they headed through. So Shanahan now on lap 7, heading for turn 1. There's George McAlpine in third place, and Alan Ring there. Richie Ryan's just diving up the inside of Neville Smith and taking that place, and he's about to jump onto the back of Alan Ring's gearbox. Maybe Ring has a problem, Alan.
And it's nice to see so much young talent, new talent in the Zetec class, as well as Neil Shanahan, of course, is leading. We've got Richie Ryan's there, number 27, just behind Alan Ring. And this man, Neville Smith, 35, in the Vector. Very pretty car indeed.
A car that was raced very successfully by Jeff Wright last year in Ireland and the UK, but you can see the dice is on there for that 4th place. George McAlpine still in 3rd, but Alan Ring still under pressure from Ryan's, but Ryan's really under pressure from Neville Smith as they go down into this tight entry. And as I've said, you just put your foot in as quick and as long as you can, and out you come. Somebody off in a big way there along the dirt on the side of the track and into the kitty litter. We'll have a look at that in a minute. Meanwhile, Alan Ring has pulled a couple of car lengths, but Smith looking a tight line at the entry of this double apex, just not close enough to get by, and these two are beginning to fall away from Alan Ring.
Up over the hill, the Vector, very wide car, as you can see there. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. The Vector getting very sideways as it came into view, and it is number 31, that's Tim Murray, who was off there at very high speed. Meanwhile, the leaders come up the hill towards us again. Neil Shanahan in the Van Diemen, followed by Chris Paul in the Van Diemen. Then we have George McAlpine, number 26, Alan Ring. Then we have Richie Ryan's. Neville Smith was next, and then a little gap before we get the 2 professional men, Dr. Henry O'Friel and McConville on the inside. And sadly, they're number 23, that's Keogh, coming into retire, one of the real front runners in Zetec.
Just didn't get it together off the line. We think he had a problem with his 2nd gear, but he tried to keep going. but he still hasn't given up on the championship. But meanwhile, this man has his eyes firmly set in the championship. He's pulled about 4 car lengths out in the quickest part of the old circuit, just turning it in. Chris Paul not letting him away. Ring is not letting George McAlpin away as they head up the hill. This is old tarmac. It's new to them 2 years ago, but it's old now because we've got a brand new stretch right in front of them where they swing a long third gear left-hander, and they head out into the country where it's very quick indeed. In fact, the quickest part of the circuit is between this double apex and the 2 right-handers. A yellow flag out there for Murray's car in the sand trap, so nobody's allowed past it. They get the green flag. They're through the yellows now, down the hill. This is where young Shanahan took his bite down the inside of Chris Paul. Can Ring do the same thing as they come down to George McAlpin? No. As they get into this double, you've got to go out wide in between these 2 right-handers to keep the momentum going, because it is quite a hill up there to the next chicane.
Shanahan continuing to pull away from Chris Paul there in first and second place. Then this little gap between the 2 Mygals, and right down the field we've got dices everywhere. We've got Mike Klein, John Gunning just ahead of this little lot, and coming through Newman, Gary Turkington in the red and white car there as they dice up over the hill and out of our view. Meanwhile, back with the leaders, Neil Shanahan, and there's Chris Paul, and still this battle for third place is hot and heavy.
George is keeping that inside line closed, and closed firmly it is as they come down the straight, but Alan Ring again back on the gearbox. Meanwhile, they're all on their final lap. Can anybody do anything about it? Can Chris Paul do anything about Neil Shanahan? Can Alan Ring do anything about George McAlpin?
And George McAlpin got a black flag there just as he came past that time. He's obviously done something naughty, so he may well be disqualified from this race. So third is very much now in doubt.
There's no doubt about number 1 there, the Bachelor in car of Neil Shanahan as they head up John Gunning again. Look at Turkington. He's actually got up through there, and he's now on the tail of Gunning, and they are really fighting now for 6th, 7th and 8th as we look there as they go out on their final lap. But the final lap at the moment, and here he is. Neil Shanahan still to do his leaving this year in a couple of weeks' time, and then when he's finished, he says he can take his motor racing really serious. Can he take it any more serious? I say I don't think so.
And nothing less than Formula One is going to satisfy this man in the future, and he's certainly going in the right direction in these very early days, it has to be said, at the moment. Chris Paul still in second place. Who's going to be third? The battle is still raging, but George McAlpin now with a huge cloud hanging over his head in terms of a black cloud, a black flag.
A black flag would mean either stop-go penalty, which would just put him out of control. That's Foley's car, the DHL car of John Edward Foley being pushed out of the sand trap there. Kelly's car from the early situation, but look at the battle. This young lad, as you say, it's great to see the young guy. Dick Smithstone Neville really having a cut. It won't be long before he's up there on the front row, locking a wheel on his final time into turn 11, as we say, as they come down to the flag. So it's yet another win for Shanahan from Chris Paul, and this will put him firmly in the lead in the championship.
And just at the very last minute, Richie Ryan hits the kitty litter and drops a place. What a shame. Gary Turkington seems to have won the war within the war from John Gunning. Mike Klein locking up there, number 29, and that's still raging hot and heavy, and Michael Hill is still in there.
I got Chris down when you're going down the back straight into the double right-hander on the new circuit. I'd tried the same move on the lap before, and he managed to close the door on me. And the second time I got a better run out of the sweeper, and I got up alongside him, and I just had him. And I'm delighted to pass somebody like Chris because he's a great driver.
I'd say I let him through a bit, but he was brave and he did it well.
What can I say? It was just a great day, and the team worked really well. Mick Merrigan and his team and my sponsors. It's just so good to be true, I suppose. It's our third win this year, and I suppose I didn't expect to go so well.
Only 6 rounds done, 6 rounds to go. You know yourself, Plum, a lot of things can happen in motor racing.
If the Strikers are this year's success, well then last year's undoubted hit was the introduction of the Zetec engine into the Ford of Ireland Formula 4 Championships. The racing has been fast and furious, with Neil Shanahan, Chris Paul and Philip Keogh emerging as the front runners. Now all 3 drive Van Diemen's, But this new class has brought an interesting variety of chassis. Brian Chute has been investigating.
We started with a 92 Van Diemen in my first year last year in Formula Ford 1600, and we swept the board. And last year in England, the 97 Van Diemen also kind of swept the board, so that kind of led us to believe it was one of the best cars going. Like last year we tested the Magal and the Van Diemen, and really both cars were as good as each other. And this year I think there's very little between the Magal and the Van Diemen.
I met Bertrand de Costa at Brands Hatch about 3 years ago, and sort of struck up a good relationship with him, and he wanted a car into Ireland. So this is my actual second year with the Magal, so that's really what started it off. But it's a superb wee car. It's very stiff, maybe just not quite as suited to the bumpy circuits over here. It's doing very well in England, so it is. But we're working hard at it, and we're still well up the front.
And with us we also have Roger Parks, the race engineer from Swift Cars here in Ireland. What are you doing here, Roger?
I came over on Friday to look at the car in Ireland here, the 98 car. Running now with 4 cars in Holland and 2 in England. And the customers need a visit from the race engineer in England, so as we can have a liaison with defects or success, hopefully. And in Holland, we've recently won at Spa, and I want to convey some of that knowledge over to Peter here to have a hopefully successful day.
The Vectors in 97, 96 did a very good job on the track and in the British Championships. We thought we'd try it, see how the new 98 went.
What is the major difference between that and the Van Diemen you were driving?
Well, apart from the fact that it is a newer, stiffer chassis, the Vector is a monoshock at the front with a floating geometry here, whereas the old Van Diemen was a twin shock absorber at the front. That's the main noticeable difference.
And you're happy with your choice?
Well, the car suffered a bit from a lack of development at the start of the year because the car really wasn't finished until just before my first race. So we struggled a bit at the start, but we are getting there slowly. But we are getting there.
After qualifying, it's the Van Diemens in the top 3 spots, with Philip Keogh in pole position, followed by the emerging talents of young Gary Turkington and Shanahan on the second row. Peter Walsh is next up, the fastest Swift, and George McAlpine, the fastest Magal on row 4. And we have almost to look at the back of the field to find a Vector.
As he said, Raymond, the Vector not getting. Now this I'm not too sure about. Keogh has stopped behind his position on the line. He's looking towards the pit lane, and what you don't see is the 2 mechanics come out and move him up into position. Now to me that is a push start. He's had his green flag lap, so I'm not sure about this, and I don't think the officials are, but I don't want to take it away from Philip. They're ready to go. There's the 2 lads jumping over the barrier. We're waiting on the lights. Now watch the young man on the second row, young Shanahan, just catches them all with their trousers down. What a flying start. The minute he grabs second, straight out over that white line and in front of Keogh and takes the lead. And this is the sign of a really good pilot of the future. Keogh in second place. Then we look at Peter Walsh just holding out O'Feil, but everybody and anybody, and Alan Kelly in the middle of that. And unfortunately, we've lost our front row man, young 18-year-old superstar of the future, Gary Turkington.
So a very typical Mondello scene, I'm afraid, the first corner mayhem. But meanwhile, Shanahan's out there, Keogh's out there, Peter Walsh is in 3rd place, and we're just looking at, looks like Dr. Henry O'Friel is in 4th place. So they've broken free there, clear of all this mayhem. There's a lot of tidying up still going back at that first corner, so we don't know if this race is going to be stopped or not. These 2 aren't interested in that. They're out, the 2 Van Diemens leading.
A battle out there, but look at young Shannon, but Keogh's not letting him away. Philip, the most unfortunate Formula Zetec driver, that he's had a clutch go, he's had a clutch slip, he's had a gearbox go, but at the moment the only gearbox that's about to go is young Shannon's if he doesn't get his nose out of it, as they head back into the main arena, as we'd call it, up the hill. And oh, that's Klein and Foley, and Klein being launched there. right at a very, very quick part of the circuit. And again, look at Joe having a look at that inside line, just a couple of feet short, hand in the air because the pace car flag is out. You can see the pace car up the front there. Now, unfortunately, the regular pace car is not there, which has bright yellow lights situated on the roof, which all the drivers right back to maybe 10th or 12th position would see, like those locking up their wheels there. Nobody could see the flashing yellow lights, and it is a dangerous situation.
So they have to queue now behind the pace car till they clear up the circuit, and this indeed could take a few laps. But there it was. Shanahan was in first, Joe second, then Walsh, and then we drove Friel, and then we had that other man very much in contention, Chris Paul, in the dark green car in the middle of the pack. This is the replay of the first corner, and really we can't see the mayhem developing there. It's all happened by the time it comes into our camera shot, but Richie Ryan, 27, lost a wheel. We see it from another angle, and again it's a little bit obliterated by the bank, but I think Mark O'Connor was lucky to get away from that mayhem. Number 40 in there, that's Jeff McConville. There's his nose cone. He gets going again, not too badly damaged in the sightlines car, but a lot of cars eliminated in that first lap accident, and there's more.
And we said another replay, you say just catching the back of John Foley's car, and Mike Klein just taking off airborne in the Ryanair colours as well, blue and gold. That's one of the quickest parts of the circuit, but Foley limps away. Once he gets back onto the circuit, we see it, he's all in one shape. Yes, that's the other T-head gel car.
And I've a suspicion that neither of them were to blame for that one. I think there was a little kerfuffle going up ahead of them. Meanwhile, the restart, down they come the hill. The pace car's pulled off, and it's Shanahan, number 1, leading from Keogh. Now, Keogh didn't get a very good restart there. He's lost a bit of ground, and then there's a gap before Peter Walsh. Then we have 37, O'Friel, and look at O'Connor, number 25 on the outside. Down the inside goes Chris Paul, and he's a man very much in contention for the championship.
Remember, it's Joe and Paul who are second and third, or Joe second and Paul third in the championship, and they don't want to see Neil Shanahan driving away into this and that. Getting back to the pace car situation, we know there are flags out there to tell you there's a pace car on the track, but why not have the proper pace car with the proper lights, or don't use it, just use the flags? But this is the battle here at the moment, looking at the back of that car, and it is O'Connor looking at the back of young Walsh's car. He wants to get himself up into that third place, but Peter Walsh having to drive his life in the old Swift. 2 Swifts, actually that's Henry O'Friel, my apologies Henry. Henry hanging on to the gearbox there of Peter Walsh, and he's doing a superb job in the Van Diemen. But Peter Walsh at the moment, with his race engineer over from Swift, is taking no nonsense.
Dr. Henry O'Friel, he started racing a number of years ago in a rather tatty old Crosley in the Formula Friendly class, and he's come right up, and there's Keogh. Keogh loses it on the curbs, and he's gone right round. He's lost 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 places, and that's doing his championship. And another man who was involved in that was the other championship contender, and he's coming into the pits. That's Chris Paul.
Chris Paul, unfortunately, silent witness, but we can't take this away from no mechanical failure there. I think Philip just got it out on the curbs, little over enthusiastic, and threw that second place away, but could it be the championship? But meanwhile, back of the ranch, as they say, it's Walsh now up into second place. So O'Friel on the podium at the moment, and that's someplace Mark O'Connor wants to be. And this battle in the background, as they just all stretch through, and that is Raymond Knox getting back together on the Vector. We saw him on the grass at the very first lap, and he's gathering it all together. But at the moment, under no pressure, number 1, the RIAC champion of last year, young Neil Shanahan, just stretching away in the lead. So the battle, Walsh at the moment having an easy time, and he's up into third place. O'Friel has been popped back down now, so Mark O'Connor has got himself up into third place with the Castor car.
And of course they've got very little time to do it because they've spent 4 laps under that pace car, so really they've got to fight it out. There's number 30, a former Formula Ford 1600 champion. That's Alan Ring, all the way from Kerry in his MyGal. So coming up to lead at the into turn 11, there's Shanahan in second place, Peter Walsh in the Swift. Third place, and another Swift, that's O'Connor, and then we have a Van Diemen, and then a MyGal. Number 30 there, Alan Ring.
Alan Ring, a champion in the past, just heading down what's now a short straight in Mondello Park, although the straights on the extension aren't much longer, because the corners leading onto them that little bit quicker, you get your seat wound up. And Nice and dry at the moment. You can see in the background George McAlpine's Genuine Miller draft car parked well and truly in the gravel from the first lap incident. And again, off they go there. Number 44, that's Damien Burke, just stuck in the sand. I don't think he's going to get out of that one. Back with the battles. That is second place man Walsh, and he is being caught at the moment by Mark O'Connor. O'Friel being dropped back into the hands of Alan Ring.
So nobody catching this man though, Neil Shanahan. What a year he's had. He's come up from being the 1600 champion and a real talent in the future. This guy leads the championship, has had a load of wins already this year, and we are concentrating naturally enough now on the battle for second place. Peter Walsh did his season in England before coming back to Ireland last year, drives for the PJ Fallon team, and the man behind him drives for the Cliff Dempsey team, so there's quite a bit of decent rivalry between these two. Both in Swifts, incidentally.
A little bit of mistake there from Mark. He put nearly all four wheels out on the dirt, and that lost him a little bit of time and let Henry O'Friel slowly gather himself together, but he's gathered it all together. Hard on the brakes, Ring late on the brakes there, and a nice little slide there from O'Friel. This guy really enjoying his motor racing, but O'Connor definitely has his sights set firmly on Peter Walsh's second place. Coming into the closing laps, haven't left it too long. Raymond Knox in the Vector, really getting his head down as well. I'd say he was cursing himself after that first lap since. And oh, another back marker. That is Derek M. Daly. I won't say a back marker, he's a spinner. Just lose it, but trying to find a gap in the gravel to get back on the track.
So quite an eventful Zetec race, 1800cc, of course, engines, and we're still looking at the battle for second place. This is where the main interest is at the moment. Can O'Connor do it before the checkered flag? Nobody's going to catch that man and unless he makes a mistake. That's Neil Shanahan. There they are, second, third, and then Dr. Henry O'Friel, and really, let's give him a big round of applause, because he's come right up into the very competitive end, the sharp end of Formula Ford, and by Jove, that is a sharp instrument, Formula Ford at this level. So there's second place battle still going on. O'Connor now getting closer as they come through this very fast left-hander up the hill to turn 11. He's looking to the left, he's looking to the right, but naturally enough, Peter Walsh leaving no gaps there. Down they plunge onto the start-finish straight, and here's the leader almost at the end of the start-finish straight, going on to his final lap. And here's the battle for second place, just coming over that little rise before they go hard onto the brakes, down to about 30 miles an hour, around this long right-hander, and then onto the new loop that we haven't ever seen used before today.
We've got 22 starters, but we've only 11 runners at the moment, so lots of attrition out in this race, lots of visits to the kitty litter, as they say, but no such a thing. This young man, I had my doubts about him. I don't say I had my doubts about him in the past. It's just that he didn't have a lot of competition, but he's had plenty of competition, 3 wins in a row. All I want him to do is now go out and break the old Mondello lap record, and then he should pack his bags and head to England and take on the big boys. But at the moment, the big boys are fighting over second place. That's Peter Walsh and Mark O'Connor. Mark ever closer. I think he's left it too late, but then there's 3 very quick ones left. It used to be that you'd only have 2 left, but he's back out onto the entrance, onto the old circle. We saw O'Connor make a mistake putting the wheels out onto the dirt. The two of them about equal there, but Peter keeping that inside line, middle of the road line. There is our winner. Will it be Peter Walsh? It has to be in the DHL car. Mark O'Connor in third, Henry O'Friel fourth, and Paul Dagg fifth.
I always try to make a point of making a good start. I always think like you can win a race in the first lap, so that's what I did today. Went for it in the first lap.
Fortunately, I've had a bad year with reliability problems with my car, so this is only my second finish this year in the last 7 rounds, so I'm pleased with the second, so I'm glad.
The pace car, I think, caught a lot of us out because we like to race and that's what we're here for, and to go around at 50 mile an hour for 3 laps is a bit ridiculous.
Not a very happy Mark O'Connor, but a delighted Neil Shanahan, who now has a 10-point lead in the Ford of Ireland Championship.
The big excitement in Irish motor racing this year has been the arrival of the new international track at Mondello. But here in Kirkistown, County Down, there's also plenty to celebrate, as this is the 50th anniversary of the 500 Club. In 1948, a group of enthusiasts purchased this old wartime airfield, and began to race their 500cc single-seaters on it, hence the name of the club, and the start of Ireland's first permanent racing venue. Superstars. If you'd been looking at a Kirkistown Formula Ford entry list from 10 years ago, you would have seen an Eddie Irvine from Conlig, a few years before that a Martin Donnelly from Belfast, and before that a Kenny Atchison from Cookstown. All of them of course made it into Formula 1. But there are a few in today's lineup that, given the right brakes, could follow. Watch out for Neil Shanahan from Dublin in car number 1 and Gary Turkerton from Portadown in car number 28. You might just be looking at a champion of the future.
When you're stargazing, you've got to start with Neil Shanahan. When the 19-year-old Churchtown lad graduated from karting, he went straight to the winner's circle. Neil has been the DHL Formula Ford 1600 champion, the Dunlop Driver of the Year, the Sexton Trophy winner, and this year he leads the Ford of Ireland series.
Yeah, we were going great for the last 2 days. We've been quickest in testing with our soulless engine. Unfortunately, we had a problem and our engine let go yesterday. We've been very lucky to get a higher of an engine off Richie Ryan's. If it wasn't for Richie, we'd be going home today, and we need to get out there and score points, even if it's only going to be an 8th place points. We're leading the championship by 10 points ahead of Chris Paul. We need points today, and we're just lucky to have an engine and be there.
Neil's championship rival is a veteran by Formula Ford standards, having graduated through the ranks of Formula V and Ford 1600. The northern driver has many racing miles under his seatbelts.
Qualified third. I didn't get down for testing yesterday. I had a radiator problem, a water leak. So I went out cold this morning, and even though I know my way around here, you like a wee warm up before, especially at my age.
Wexford driver Philip Keogh is another young charger with a string of accolades already in his short career. But as we can see here at Pembury, if there's trouble, Philip seems to find it. And his obvious talent is too often frustrated by mechanical and on-track incidents.
Second last day in Mondello, the clutch slipped on the line, which put me back in 12th on the first lap. Whereas the last day I went one better, the clutch went all together on the warm-up lap. So I actually went to retire, but only for Damien, my team man, and security came over to the barrier and they actually said to me to keep the revs down low and just bang right into gear when the lights go green, which actually did happen, and I got away nice. Neil Shanahan bet me off the line, but unfortunately it was very hard to drive during the race and I ended up spinning.
Mark O'Connor is another who is often in the wars, and his Swift is the 1998 model, following an accident where he wrote off his last chassis in Wales.
Yeah, I'm very pleased with the 98 Swift. I think we lost Paul on the second last lap, and we couldn't do anything about it on the last lap. But I'm happy enough, front row, first into the corner will do rightly.
Well, on pole position is that man, Philip Keogh. Let's hope he's no problems today. And on the outside of the front row, as Mark says, it is Mark O'Connor in the Swift. In the background there, our second place in the championship man, Chris Paul, and beside him, Richie Ryan's. Now, these four will want to make a good start, but some real chargers are on the way. It's George McAlpin and Alan Ring. And then we've young Turkington and Henry O'Friel. And surprise, surprise, the man who's leading the championship, that 18-year-old from Dublin, Neil Shanahan, in 9th place. We're waiting for the lights to change. Who will it be? Will it be a good race from Keogh, or can O'Connor just get him off the line? Little bit slippy, a little bit damp, and here we go, and a lot of wheels from Keogh, so it's O'Connor really makes it through, and everybody bunching up behind them as they make their way through this long left-hander, and we've got somebody off. That's Peter Walsh there, and O'Friel, I think it is, yes, Peter Walsh and O'Friel and Mike Klein, so they're racing up. Now in the background you'll see they begin to want someone coming up the outside. They're just getting through, all five there get through, and then it's the next lot, three abreast. They come down the grass and it's just a passenger from then on, so this race will have to be stopped and we'll have a restart.
So a lot of damage right at the very beginning, always an anxious moment. There's the DHL car being put back on the lorry, Klein's car and O'Friel's car, and a very disconsolated Walsh there. Peter Walsh just walking back. Here we are, the restart, same grid positions. We're looking at the champion leader at the moment, number 1, Neil Shanahan there, right back, and he's a lot of ground to make up, but he's a very down on power engine today.
And Keogh doesn't really get a good start for the second time, as you can see there. It's O'Connor again as they make their way through that long, very quick left hand, and somebody off there. It's Michael Hill, number 36, but he looks to be okay, just caught up on the traffic as they make their way down to this fairly sharp right-hander, and it's O'Connor this time, just leading his way through this long set of S's and then a fairly sharp right-hander, which brings them onto the back of the circuit. That's Michael Hill just extracting himself from that car that's well off the road.
Michael Hill in the Van Diemen, and he is in a dangerous place. He's right on the outside of what they call Debtor's Dip, the fastest corner on the circuit. Meanwhile, they're coming to the chicane for the first time, and it's O'Connor and the Castrop car in the lead, being shadowed there very, very closely indeed by the Wexford driver as they go down the long back straight. They'll be hitting about 130 miles an hour before they get on the anchors for the hairpin, and that's what they're doing at the moment.
And trying around the outside, which is a long, long way, and he does it. Young Richie Rhines makes it up there into the lead, just pops his way by Mark O'Connor, and that looked very simple indeed. Now you can see from the spray, this is not a dry track. Hands up again, so yes, the pace car flag, which means that there will be somebody on the track trying to move that. That is the two-colored cross flag there. So everybody's got to slow down. You can see in the background the ambulance will be coming out to move that car, so they've got to drive around and be good boys.
So it was Richie Rhines who really caught us out there. This is the man from Tandrigee, only in about his third season of racing. Moved up to Zetec last year. There's the man that's causing the problem, Hill. And here we've got the green flag. Pace cars pulled off. We're back to racing.
A green flag it is, but look at the way Richie Rhines has caught them all on the hop. He had about 12, maybe 15 car lengths when the green flag came out, and this is just what you need. Now the battle in the background, Mark O'Connor with his mirrors full of Zetecs, Ryan there with George McAlpine in tow as they nip through that very quick right-hander at the end of which one of the fastest straights, if it is the fastest straight, in Irish motor racing. And look at this, he's got 2-3 car lengths. He just puts a wheel up on the curb there, turning into chicane there, using the inside curb. You can see where they've extended the chicane, where the tires are with the old tight chicane. They've widened it out, and everybody uses that inside curb to launch themselves out. They're making their way. That's young, not young, that's Derek M. Daly. He won't mind that. And his spinner there is that Jag number 54, I think it is. No, it's John Foley. John Foley just spinning out there. We can see Ryan's, it's still slippy out there. A move up there from number 23, that's Keogh. He's under a lot of pressure from Alan Ring, and I think he's just popped him down a place.
Alan Ring, former 1600 champion, has now got a Margall, one of the French-made cars, and he's really been going better in this, but he's being challenged now again as they go through Debtor's Dip. Just look, let's pick it up. It's Ryan in first place, in second place O'Connor, and then they come a whole pack of 1800cc Zetec engine cars. Number 28 there, that's George McAlpine in his Miller car, streaming through. First and second Colonial, and somebody going straight on there.
That is Jeff McConville, but meanwhile back out front, and it is still Ryan's from O'Connor, these two pulling just a little gap. Alan Ring, then we have Philip Keogh, then Neil Shannon, he's moved up, but Chris Paul is really on his gearbox, and this is where he wants to be. Remember the battle for the championship between these two, he's got to make a move soon, Chris.
Chris Paul, very experienced indeed, and very experienced particularly at Kirkistown. Neil Shanahan, both in Van Diemen's, those two drivers, just coming into your picture after Alan Ring. There they are, number 32. That's Chris Paul there, shadowing his championship rival, who, remember, has had to borrow an engine today and is a bit down on power.
You saw actually from that shot at the hairpin that Rhines and O'Connor could take a wide line through the hairpin, but Ring keeping the door closed and Shannon keeping the door closed, because that is where all the pressure is. There's Ring just getting through there. Paul having a look at the outside. George McAlpine having looked down the inside there. Has he moved up a place? No, he's still trying to get through there, but that was Shannon keeping that door well and truly closed.
And Chris Paul really made short work there of Neil Shannon, something he hasn't been able to do all week. And going off on the outside there, O'Connor went wide coming out of Fisherman's and lost a lot of ground to Richie Rhines, the leader. Still in third place, Alan Ring now coming under big pressure from the Wexford driver, Philip Keogh.
The spinner there, and it's George McAlpine has thrown it all away at the hairpin, and look at how many places he's lost, and that is a disaster for his race, and he was going so well. Meanwhile, young Ryan's up front turns into the hairpin. You can see a very wide line there from O'Connor, But Keogh and Ring, and Keogh's got by Ring, and look at Shanahan, he's still staying with Chris Paul, even with this borrowed engine. Now, that's not to say there's anything wrong, but every engine is different, so the power band might be slightly different from what he's used to, but at the moment he's struggling a little bit. But as long as he can see Chris Paul and keep him in sight, his championship is still alive.
And a really tricky day, as we saw, because if you get a little bit offline, you get off the dry line, and then you can just see a little bit of the wet being thrown up by the Zetec cars there as they go out into the country. Coming through the fast fisherman bend, Richie Ryan's in perfect now, and O'Connor really has made up a lot of ground. He's made up for that mistake of a couple of laps ago, both using the curbs. These curbs, incidentally, have been eased a lot through the chicane, making it much faster and much less damaging on the cars.
See that Chris Paul is right on the gearbox of Alan Ring. In fact, nearly alongside him as they go down this very fast back straight into the hairpin. If it goes a wide line on the outside, and O'Connor trying that wide line, can he turn across the back of Ryan's? It's very slippy, just scrabbling for grip, but he knows what he wants to do. If he can get alongside and really pull it to the flag, that's where he could win this race. But Ryan's just closing the door nice and gently as they go into this very, very quick left-hander, and these two are actually pulling away from the third place man, which should be gaining, because they, although they're not falling over each other, but they are slowing each other slightly.
And you've got to really take your hat off to Richie Ryan's. He's driving a very mature race indeed. Far the less experienced. There's somebody who made a big mistake. Chris Paul lost a place there, nearly lost 2 places possibly, as he ran wide into First Colonial.
That is just what you were saying about, you get out on the grass, it gets on the slippy circuit, and you've got to just back off and let it gently slide out. But look at the battle for the lead, and it's still Keogh in third place. Then we've got Alan Ring, then Chris Paul, and Shanahan hasn't given up yet. As I say, as long as he can see Chris Paul, the championship's still alive. And again, it's Chris Paul having a look at that outside as they come to the hairpin. This is the battle for the lead. O'Connor again, just getting the nose down, trying to get turned right across the back. And all the time, Keogh is beginning to slowly move, and a nice move there from Shanahan. Nearly got the two of them napping, but Chris Paul has moved up a place. And will Shanahan get through? Can he get himself through? I don't think so. It's the inside line. Shanahan being punched out, so Chris Paul has made another place. More points for his championship.
Well, Neil Shanahan driving a very canny race here. He's in the borrowed engine. It's not that much down in power, but he's really on a damage limitation exercise here and trying to go for the maximum points, and not a perfect weekend for him.
He can still see Chris Paul, so there's only a point between moving to the outside. See, can he out-fumble Ring? But Richie Ryan putting wheels out onto the curb. This time, no mistakes from Mark O'Connor. Closing in, not using as much of the curb as Ryan. Second curb he uses, and third man there, Keogh, really using the curb. And through goes Chris Paul, and he's leaving these two, Ring and Shanahan, to battle it out. And we have another spinner coming out of the chicane, and it's Paul Daggan. He's just been caught by Derek M. Daly, who just torn that back suspension. Now he's got to get himself out of there, because that is a really dangerous situation. Just on the exit of the chicane, where they're going very quick. I'm surprised if we don't have a pace car out, or even a red flag, which unfortunately will spoil this race, Plum.
So is Richie Ryan's going to win this race? Is the race is going to be halted at this stage? What a pity, because we've got some very entertaining dices down the field. So Ryan's may well make it a My Gal victory if they bring out the red flag here. We're waiting to see. Meanwhile, we're still looking at this battle with the current championship leader, Neil Shanahan, there, number one, right on the tail of another My Gal. That's and there's the red flag, so the race is being stopped, and indeed the result is going to be declared at this stage. So Richie Ryan's, under unfortunate circumstances, but all the same, gets his first Zetec win. Mark O'Connor is going to be in second place, and there's the problem. Paul Dagg's car is stranded there. Mark O'Connor in second place in the Swift, and Philip Keogh in third in the Van Diemen.
And the Gal chassis win in the hands of Richard Ryan. Your first win in Zetec?
Yeah, it's our first time up here, so over the moon. We got a super start on both the restarts. We got Mark at the hairpin. We sort of pulled out a bit of a gap, the two of us, but other than that, the race went well. The car handled superb. Mark gave us a couple of moments, but it all held together.
So Richie Ryan's wins his first Zetec race, but there's no change at the top of the Ford of Ireland Championship. First three remain the same.
Welcome to the Carlow Car Club Mondello meeting at this crucial stage in the Irish Racing Championships. The Ford of Ireland Formula Ford still has 4 rounds to go. And although Neil Shanahan, the young sensation of the Zetec field, is 8 points in the lead, there's still a lot of racing to go.
"19-year-old Neil Shanahan from Dublin has been in all the Zetec headlines this year. The Dunlop Sexton champion has elevated himself into the senior Formula Ford class with ease, and he has a useful advantage over his experienced rival Chris Paul.
I've been fortunate enough this year to win 4 rounds, and really what I'd like to do now is just consolidate my lead, and I need to be scoring points really in every race from now on. Chris Paul's only 8 points behind me, so I can't afford to rest, and I certainly can't afford to not finish a race.
Chris Paul is the thorn in Shanahan's flesh. He has 2 wins and 3 seconds on a string of fastest laps to his credit, and as everybody knows, he never gives up.
There's 4 rounds to go. There's a possible 14 points for each round, 4 14s, whatever, 56 points. You know, 8 points is a small deficit.
A young Wexford farmer has been in pole more than anyone, and he's won in Wales, been second twice at Kirkistown and once at Mondello. With improved preparation, he could become a real champion.
Philip Joe, third in the championship, but third this morning in qualifying.
Not too well pleased with that, Brian. My front left was locking an awful lot, which meant I couldn't brake, so I had to brake about 10 yards back every time. And any time I did go to brake late, I threw the car sideways and messed up my qualifying a bit.
Then there are the new men, Richie Ryan, 4th in the Ford of Ireland Series, and with that Kirkistown win behind him that we witnessed on RPM, to his credit. Possibly the most exciting of all, Gary Turkington, just 17 years of age, his first season of Formula Ford and in pole position here at Mondello. 12 laps of this demanding new circuit lie ahead for the Ford of Ireland Zetec runners. 12 laps of guaranteed action.
And it is indeed Turkington from Shanahan, then Keogh from Ryan, then McAlpin from Chris Paul. Who would it be? The flag start, 5 seconds to go. The quick start is the most important. On the outside of that front row, it's Shanahan again. This young man can make demon starts. The yellow car of Keogh there, holding that 3rd place. And on the inside, George McAlpin just trying to bunch himself up. And the Ryan's a long way around the outside, puts a wheel on the grass. We've lost him. He's collected it all together, but that's dropped him 4 or 5 places as they stream out into the country with Shanahan in the lead.
On to the new part of the circuit. Very fast sweeps, and Shanahan number 1 out in front. Been shadowed by that 17-year-old Turkington. Turkington getting very close to him there on the right-hander as they come now up, accelerating up a slight gradient over the brow of the hill, the fastest part of this new circuit now, and then down into these double right-hand hairpins.
These double right-hand hairpins, you let it all run out, just clip the curb and then cut in tight on the right-hand side. And you can see Keogh there in 3rd place. He's not letting Turkington get away, but while these two will be battling together, young Shannon, he has this knack and they're coming together there. And I think that's John Edward Foley or Joe Edward Foley spinning out there, and he was in contact with Burke. And meanwhile, back up front, the red and white car there, the Haywood Williams group. The Gary Turkington car and Keogh having a look at that inside. That's just to try and intimidate him. He's not really close enough. You've got to get the wheels really on board to get up to that. Turkington keeping that inside line firmly closed. Keogh trying to come around the back and get a slingshot out. But all the time, McAlpin and Chris Paul are catching up.
Chris Paul, remember, is the man who's lying 2nd in the championship there, and the green car lying in about 5th position at the moment, and he really desperately has to get up places. There he is, number 32 there, just going out of your picture now, the tail end of that bunch.
You could see Turkington, how brave he was. They used the outside of the track, moved out, let Keogh have a look at the inside and said, come on, if you have the late brakes, come and take it. But in the background, these two, and Keogh does that slingshot move, and I think Turkington has a problem. He seems to have missed a gear. Yes, missing out badly there, 3-4 in front, but unfortunately that looks as if his race is gone, but 17 years of age, he's plenty of time to come back. But this is all playing into the hands of this young man, Shannon, looking in his mirrors now. He's got his old adversary, Philip Keogh, and Paul has got to pass George McAlpin, so the 3 men in the championship are now 1st, 2nd and 3rd, and the spinner there, that is Foley again, so the score at the moment is Foley 2, the rest 0.
Shanahan really pulling away, but now Keogh having got rid of Turkington, he's got the head down, he's really going after him. So Neil Shanahan got a bit of a break there on that opening lap. Chris Paul now in third place, George McAlpin in fourth, and then we've Paul Dagg in fifth place, and he's been very, very closely shadowed there in the background by O'Connor.
So it's still Shanahan and the Batcher in, Palfinger Ireland car. There's George McAlpin in the Miller car. He let Chris Paul through. He'll be kicking himself. He's down in sixth in the championship, both from the same part of the country, but no love lost when they're out there. So it's O'Connor now in fifth place. Shanahan, Keogh, Paul, McAlpin and Mark O'Connor beginning to make inroads there on the back of these guys. But not a great start for him, but another great driver from the south.
Very, very fast kink they come through. This is actually the oldest part of Mondello racing, and then onto this long straight and down into this right-hander, which people thought was going to be a little bit quicker. O'Connor there trying very hard on the outside there, but I don't think he got through. He was blocked a little bit there, so O'Connor's still maintaining that position in the Castrol car, but he's alongside now. He's got a good line down into the hairpin. He may get up a place there. So it's Shanahan, then the Duckins car of Keogh, and there's O'Connor through.
Through there past Paul Dagg and the DHL HB Dennis car, part of the PJ Fallon racing, but these two are battling up. You can see a nice sweep here on the extension in Mondello, but Paul Dagg hasn't given up. That's O'Connor there in the Cliff Dempsey Castle car. Then is the HB Dennis car of Paul Dagg, and these two are fighting tooth and nail. You can see that Dagg isn't giving up. He's still on the gearbox there of O'Connor. Chris Paul through, then McAlpin, and then the battle in the background for sixth and seventh. Knocking wheels there, Philip Keogh. Everybody having, it's a warm day here at Mondello. Tires and brakes will begin to suffer as the grip is so tremendous in the heat, and that is O'Connor. And still Dagg shadowing down the main straight, moving over to the left for the wide line into the very tight hairpin. George McAlpin leading them through there, but still up front it is still Shanahan from Keogh, from Chris Paul, then George McAlpin, and then this battle.
And interesting thing, the Zetec's 1800cc engines as opposed to 1600 for the old cars. No aerodynamic devices, of course, in them, and that means that they are quite hard to get stopped because they're coming into the corners to move 20 miles an hour faster than the 1600 used to. So they are pretty hard to get stopped, and that's why you see an awful lot of locking brakes. But here's Shanahan still pulling ahead. What an amazing young talent this man is.
Yes, the Dunlop driver of the year from last year, spent his year in Formula 4, did everything right, won most of his races. We weren't quite sure just how good he was, mainly because he was just riding away from the opposition, but this year he's being put up to him every time he's hit them. Oh, and a spinner there. That there is Neville Smith, is it? Yes, Neville Smith on the way down the circuit backwards and just caught the curb there with his back wheel. But going back to this young man, he did everything right last year, won his championship, won his driver of the year, but this year he's under pressure now and doesn't get it very wide there. And Damien Burke, he's lucky he didn't go off, he just caught it there. You can see the nose is badly damaged. Wheel in the air there, following a car down. That is the fastest. That indeed is Neville Smith again. He lost the wheel and that didn't land on him. That is on the fastest part of the circuit. That's the Wexford colours for Philip Keogh by one of his fans. And looking at the back of the car, Neville Smith saying, I wonder was that clout on the car that did the damage. And would you believe, it's Foley 3, the rest 0.
So Foley having a very adventurous day. Neville Smith, I think, damaged that car when he came off the curb after his first spin. Moving ahead now, still Shanahan, pulling ahead, still in second place, Philip Keogh. These two big championship contenders, and the third man of the championship ready to come over the hill here at Dunlop Corner, and there he is. There's McAlpin fourth, then O'Connor, then Dagg. Paul Dagg going very well, and recovering Richard Ryan. He's flying.
Yes, remember, out on the grass he went. Now with 2 laps to go in this 12-lapper, can he do anything about it? Getting himself back up into contention, but unfortunately just got pushed out just about here, getting out of the first corner on the first lap. He's on a long, hard slog, but he hasn't given up yet. Mark O'Connor there in the Castle car through the quickest part of the circuit, right out to the edge. You can see he's really working at it. Down in there, and that's Paul Dagg and Richie Rand on his straight. Just dab of the brakes, then turn in, and then as much power as you can put on, you put it on. Through here, this is a long straight patch. Come down to slight left-hand sweep, and then it's downhill, heavy on the brake, down into second gear. Let the car out to the curb, and could have tried across, and this is out on the furthest part away in the new extension. Paul Dagg there, the DHL, just making his way into these sweeps. Chris Paul flicking the tune. Look at the way
points. There you're looking at the battle behind that. There is McAlpine. He's in a Mygal, the French chassis, and here's the leader, the second place man, I should say. That is Kyo in a Van Diemen, then Chris Paul in a Van Diemen, then the Mygal of McAlpine, and then the Swift here of O'Connor.
O'Connor at the moment doesn't seem to be doing anything about George McAlpine as our leader just exit through, putting a wheel out on the dirt there, just clipping it through, coming down into the braking area. The rest of you can see Ryan's really trying, as Alan was saying, these cars are a little unsteady under brake, and the slightest weight transfer and it knocks it through the circle there, and then out onto this new extension. And it's still O'Connor really trying. George up front there, but Ryan's hasn't given up yet as they come down just to dab his head on the brakes, just clip the curve nicely down Mark, all the way out there, and all the way, and he's pulling away in the background. They're side by side, Ryan's and Paul Dagg. Paul is on the inside line. Remember, the next one is a right-hander. No problem from our leader at the moment. He's already coming through the left-right sweeps, getting on the brakes, just turning in there and heading back for the main arena.
So from karting to Formula Ford 1600 and now to Zetec, this man has dominated in every single form of motorsport he's competed in. He's a man who's got big ambitions to go a lot further. Comes up into the final turn for the last time. Down the hill, the checkered flag is waiting for him for the 5th time this year. That's an incredible achievement. Here he comes, absolutely delighted. They're going to be, the welcoming committee is always there, ready for him. Second place, Philip Joe, Chris Paul, all the 3 championship contenders there in the points.
We can tell you that Dagg finished up 6th.
I just got my head down, kept the lap times consistent, and I was keeping an eye on Philip for the whole race and just trying to keep them, maintain the gap, and really I'm glad to win the race because it's very familiar with my championship.
Went after Neil and I pushed very hard and I kept the gap there till the car started going up. Probably pushed the tyres too hard and she was slipping a bit, so I just stepped where I was, finished the race.
Trying to get some points towards the championship. I think I'm still lying second, so yeah, I'm happy because a while ago it looked like if I couldn't have got the work done, I wouldn't have been on the grid.
The latest situation in the Ford of Ireland Championship shows that Chris Paul has in fact gone into the lead, with the big showdown next weekend at the Leinster Trophy meeting at Mondello.